My name is James O'Mahony. I'm a health economist at Trinity College, and today I just want to talk about a paper recently published in the journal Pharmacoeconomics. I'm quite pleased with this paper, so I just want to talk to some of the students who worked on that about what work was done. Okay, so I'm just going to ask you guys if you want to introduce yourselves very briefly. So I might just go to Michelle first.
Hello, my name is Michelle Kwok, and I'm a fourth-year medical student at Trinity College Dublin.
Hello, my name is Michael Cash. I'm a fourth-year medical student at Trinity College Dublin.
My name is Mr. Kareem, and I'm a fourth-year medical student from Trinity College Dublin.
So, Michelle, can I ask you, what did this project investigate?
So our study looked at the adherence to discounting guidelines and how it differed between countries, and we established what factors influence adherence to discounting guidelines and how.
Okay, so what was the primary data source used in this analysis?
So our primary data source for this analysis was the Tufts CEA medical registry, but we did also have to consult national guidelines on discounting from previous years as well, which required a bit more digging.
Okay, so we investigated a certain set of countries in this analysis. Mr. Can you tell us what countries you investigated and why we chose those ones?
So we took a look at 7 countries, namely Australia, Belgium, Canada, Ireland, the Netherlands, New Zealand, and the United Kingdom. So we chose these countries because they have very clear CEA guidelines published, and they also have a variety of discount rates for us to investigate. And then we also took a look at the equal and differential discounting.
So this was looking at a very large number of CEAs. What were the challenges with working with that many number of studies and all of that data?
Well, we had to firstly take a look at the CEA registry with relevant search terms, and then we had to exclude some articles and some reviews. And in some of the tabs, we found that some information was missing or incomplete, and so that meant we had to go and find the papers themselves in order to find if discounting was applied, and if so, what the rates were.
So, guys, why was the Tufts registry such a useful data source to use for this analysis?
I think it provided quite a reliable source for data in that the way that the data was presented for each study didn't vary between each study. So we were able to easily, I suppose, extract data from individual papers. There was like a small need to make corrections in some cases, or to, I suppose, explore the papers in a bit more detail, but those were rather the exception rather than the rule.
So, Mr. Can I ask you a little bit about the statistical analysis that was done for this paper? Is this something that you would have done already in your medical training so far? Absolutely
not. So this was my first time having to really apply statistical knowledge into my work, our work. Initially, I found it quite difficult to understand the concepts, and so that required me having to read around the topic and look up some YouTube videos to explain statistics and logistic regression. And so this was really interesting for me, and I also learned how to use statistical software, which I wouldn't have ever learned if I didn't get the opportunity to do this project. So I'm really, really glad that I had the opportunity to do this project and learn how to use the software and how to understand the information and apply it into the health care sector, and use that to hopefully, in the broader picture, improve the care for patients.
Okay, so regarding the principal findings of the results, in which countries do we see adherence is particularly good, and which countries do we see adherence is particularly bad?
So the overall rate of adherence observed within our sample was about 79%. For countries with very good adherence, it included Belgium and the UK, as well as the Netherlands. New Zealand, however, had the lowest rate of adherence at 28%.
So, Michelle, you mentioned Belgium and the Netherlands. What's particular about discounting in those countries?
So these countries use differential discounting, which leads to more favorable cost-effectiveness ratios, allowing the interventions to be more cost-effective.
We know that the rate of adherence in New Zealand is particularly low. Do we have any understanding why that might be the case?
We believe that the low adherence in New Zealand is due to the high discount rate applied until 2005 and 2007, which were 10% and 8% respectively. So many of the studies chose to apply the discounting rate of 3%, instead of the recommended 3.5% later.
Okay, so that 3.5% recommendation has been in place since about 2007, but even since then, we see that a lot of the Kiwi studies still apply 3% rather than the recommended 3.5%. Do we think that difference of 3 to 3.5% is going to make much of a difference then?
So the difference between 3 and 3.5% is quite minimal and will likely not affect the interventions that are approved.
So one of the interesting countries in the sample is Canada, and one of the things that we noticed is that Canada had one of the higher discount rates at 5%, but in 2017 reduced its recommended rate to 1.5%. What have we noted in terms of adherence following that adjustment?
So there was a significant improvement in the adherence in Canadian studies from 65% to 89% after the revision to 1.5%.
So in Canadian studies, when the previous recommendation had been 5%, what was the discount rate that was applied in the studies that didn't adhere most commonly?
So the discount rate that was most commonly applied in the studies that didn't adhere to the discount rate was 3%. And this was taken largely probably from the gold textbook in America. And this provided them with more favorable rates and made their interventions more cost effective.
Okay, so given that this project might be slightly something new to you, what did you learn most out of this project?
I think I gained an appreciation for pharmacoeconomics in general. As a medical student, it's not really something that I suppose our course would give a lot of time or attention to. We learn a lot about drugs, adverse events, mechanisms of action, but we really don't ever learn about the cost, the financial cost, and indeed the opportunity cost of those interventions. So I think that was something that I really got an appreciation for.
Okay. I've also learned the process of academic writing, which is very different from daily essay writing that we have done in the past.
Okay. Ms. Dura, do you have anything that was really interesting and exciting that you want to say? You've already said a little bit about the statistics, but is there anything else in terms of what you learned that you'd like to mention?
I think the process of writing a paper and doing the research required and being able to produce our own work, I feel like that has really allowed me to appreciate like academic literature, especially relating to pharmacoeconomics. And it's also allowed me to be able to understand pharmacoeconomical papers a lot more. So I feel like now if I wanted to find out the cost effectiveness of a certain medication or the impact it could have on the economy, I feel like I'm well equipped now, reasonably well equipped anyway, to be able to have an appreciation for the paper and take out the useful points for me in my personal career. Yeah,
so the last question I'd like to ask about is, what did you enjoy? I don't know, maybe it's that a bit redundant if we've already done the stuff about what you've learned, but does anybody have anything of a positive recollection that they can talk about stuff they enjoyed?
I quite enjoyed the level of, I suppose, independence, in that it felt like we were very much our own like little team, or almost like, even though I suppose we're friends, we were also, I suppose, operating as colleagues. And I suppose, yeah, I felt like we were almost being real researchers in a way.
Well, you were. You produced a paper that was published in an international peer-reviewed journal.
Yeah. So I enjoyed that. It felt like it was something more than just typical coursework or a project.
Does anybody else have anything else that they found enjoyable that they'd like to comment on?
I enjoyed making friends. I genuinely enjoyed making friends.
Getting to know them.
Yeah.
It was nice.
Because I don't think I would have gotten to know you guys as well as I do now if it wasn't for this project. And it's also like interesting to get to learn about how we write, like each other. The way we write is quite different, and the way we, especially when we were first trying to draft up the paper, I found that everyone had a different way to express themselves academically, and I found that was very, very beneficial for me to learn from you guys and exchange ideas and be able to create something. So I really, really enjoyed making friends with you guys and writing the paper together.
Super. I think that's a really nice way to finish anyway. So maybe we'll wrap up there.